You're listening to the best of Flight 1080 on AM 1080, 104.1 FM, KSCO.
You're listening to KSCO, serving Freedom, Hunter Liggett, and Jamesburg.
You know I love you.
Listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. We're hanging out with our good friend Billy Army. And Billy, it looks like we have somebody joining us today.
Got Larry
on the
Bubbles
line.
Brown waiting on the line.
The VIP line, I might say.
We played some clips earlier. Larry's Bubbles Brown, stand-up comic around the Bay Area since, boy, probably longer than he'd like us to say, but the early 80s. And he's appeared everywhere from the Punchline to, well, of course, legendary at the Holy City Zoo over there. And just, you catch him when you catch him, man. He's been around for days. Dave was asking me off air, well, what specifically can I point to? And it's hard, I don't know in terms of film work, but let's bring him on the line, and Larry, you'll tell us more about himself. Himself. Hi, Larry.
Larry, welcome aboard Flight 1080.
Oh, thanks for having me. Sorry for being late. I got a wrong number, and
my fault.
Well, we blame Kenny for that,
or me.
We blame Kenny, of course. I'm in the tropical isle of Alameda, and I've got a flip phone because I don't change with technology. So I actually had to call somebody in San Francisco to run down Kenny, and then Kenny called me back.
Well, that's okay. So
I got through.
Hey, Larry Bubbles Brown. The first off, I just got to ask you, as a pro comic that's been around the scene for a long time, what is, honestly, your take on the state or the nature of stand-up comedy right now with all the politics stuff and the PC, I guess, the culture? What's happening in the club scenes? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think people are kind of, I think comics should just say what they want to say. If the crowd doesn't like them, don't go see them. But people get, I think it's a social media and everything, if people get offended pretty easily, but so I think people are kind of reining themselves in, but there's still some really edgy comics out there, and they have a big following, so I hope it doesn't wind up with us all being censored.
Yeah. Do you find, now a lot of these comics that get big followings, did they get a following online first, and then did that translate to the club? Is that
I think that's it.
now?
There's people that can, there's people that can, who was I talking to today? That there's people that we've never heard of that are filling arenas, and that has to be from the internet, you know?
Yeah.
And I've been doing comedy for 4 decades, and I can't fill the Holy City Zoo, even if it were open.
Well, look, that's what I wanted to talk about. Look, some people, you've been around show business doing stuff on and off for years, but when I watched the documentary on you, you were in it, Three Still Standing. Now, you had done Letterman, right, in the 80s, and then later you came back 20 years later, and what I'm curious about is, in between that time, why were you never back on Letterman? Were you not doing stand-up?
I held the record for the longest time between appearances on Letterman show. Well, what happened was I got the show in the 80s, 87, and then, things changed. So the person that booked the comics on Letterman left, a new person came in, and then you try to get on. They don't know you, they don't put you on, and then years go by, and then...
I see. It was just one of those kind
Eddie
of
Brill
things.
saw me on an audition out here, and I did pretty well, and he got me on with them.
All right, yeah, fantastic. Now, Larry, something that's real similar you and Dave have in common here, Dave Michaels, is your love of women.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But I hope Dave's is returned. Mine isn't.
Well, Dave, now Dave is not necessarily a pro stand-up comic, but we've been doing shows together, and we have one coming up out in Morgan Hill, where Kenny Thomas and the Southern Baptists will be actually performing, and Dave and I'll be doing some stand-up. But I keep trying to tell Dave he needs to at least think about preparing some material. Am I wrong here? He should try to think about it, right?
Yeah, you got to have a few jokes, and then the women will be over you like a plague.
Don't lie to him, Larry, because he's going to believe that. Dave's in this for the chicks, I think. Is that true, Dave?
Yes, I think that's why we all get into it, isn't it?
Sure, yeah.
Well, what do you want to
Someone
ask?
said that everything men do is motivated by women. You try to get successful because you get that way you'll meet women.
Yeah, I've heard that. Do you think that's true, Larry?
I think it is, yes. We're simple. We just want food and affection.
That's true for Dave. I watched the way Dave operates.
Yes, he's foraging in Morgan Hill for some affection. So.
I'm sure
good-looking women in Morgan Hill.
Oh,
so
actually,
bring the A game.
there are some beautiful women in Morgan Hill.
I've never been
beautiful.
out
Oh,
there
it's a
to
beautiful
Morgan
town. A lot of cowgirls. I don't know if you've ever been out there or not, Larry.
The bus doesn't go there for me. It's
There's a lot of cowgirls out there, and they got their style. They're definitely hot.
Well, Larry, look, so I got to pick.
Good ride, yes.
Yeah.
Larry, I got to pick your brain for a second. As a fellow stand-up comic, obviously you've done thousands of gigs probably, which is fantastic, amazing. But of all those gigs, what's your just a disaster story? Can you share with our audience? This one's something that's went totally like a nightmare that you've never shared. We'd love to hear it.
Oh, there's two disasters. One was I was playing Colorado Springs, and I get up to the club on a Saturday night, and there's a big line out front, and a bunch of police were there and talking to the owner. So I come over, and he said, "What's going on?" "Oh, they had a bomb threat, and they're searching the place." And they went in. They couldn't find anything, but the bomb was going to go off when I had been on stage. So the police asked the guy if he wanted to cancel the show, and the owner looked at the full house and go, "Hell no." So the entire time I'm on stage, I'm just thinking I'm going to get killed, but the bomb didn't go off. So.
That's slightly horrifying, yeah.
The other worst one was it involved my first Letterman. The first time I auditioned for Letterman at the old Cobb in San Francisco was probably the best set of my life ever. And then they said, "Come back to New York and just audition one more time." So I go back to New York and catch a rising star, which is no longer there. And that's when I had the worst bomb of my life. So I just remember that empty feeling on the 5-hour plane ride home.
Oh.
You bomb it at an open mic, it doesn't matter. That one hurts.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to instill into Dave, that when you try to be good, it's always try to be good, and then if you fail, at least you tried your best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Dave.
comedy, you can bomb. Steve Martin said the best comic can bomb anywhere, anytime. You never know what's going to happen.
That's absolutely accurate, I think. Steve Martin's been one of my favorite stand-up comics, too. Like, Larry, I remember you from back in the 80s, I was telling Dave earlier on the show, and that is back, because in the 80s and 90s, you would see a lot more stand-up comedy on television, actually. Short sets, 5 or 10-minute sets.
Oh, yeah, they had all those, remember all the cable shows, Evening at the Improv and On the Road, and Rosie O'Donnell had a stand-up show, and they had 5 comics, and the MTV had a comedy show. They were all over. Yeah,
and now, you don't really see that. Like, it's changed, and you see a lot of comics getting the big specials and everything, 2-hour things. But the whole nature of comedy has changed. Now, someone who was watching it as a kid, I was exposed to all these different comics on the television, and it was fascinating to see. And now I feel like that's not going on. And the club scenes have sort of died. So really, that style of comedy, or the nature of comedy itself and stand-up, is it an opportunity for comics that are thinking outside the box? Because it feels like things are stagnating.
Yeah, I think you have to do everything through the internet. When in the 80s, the big thing was get on the Carson show. Mm-hmm. Carson was getting 20 million viewers a night, and now the late night shows, the top ones have 2 million.
Yeah, the numbers are tiny, yeah.
Yeah, nobody watches TV anymore. So
right.
You got to do something on the internet and get a big following off that. I think TV is just kind of worthless as far as doing anything for you.
Yeah, I feel like right now that's definitely the case. And then they're not looking for the really funny guys. They're looking for maybe people who are agendized one way or the other, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else should we talk about?
I liked it when there were just 3 TV channels. It was just, you could really get, if you got on TV then, a lot of people saw you, and now, nothing.
Right. And you know what? And I think that's Dave, what do you think about that? The idea that when there was only 3 channels, because you've talked about this, I think it's affected the culture. I don't think it's good to have all of this accessibility. I think we have too much now.
Yeah, I think what it did was it just made too many choices, and it just watered everything down.
Yeah.
It did, and I think you're right. Remember, when there was 3 channels, it kind of brought people closer together because people would be at work talking about the show they watched last night or something. And now there's just 500 shows, so nobody's watching the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some of your favorite shows, Larry, to watch? What are some of your favorite comedy shows, or do you watch?
I don't. I usually watch true crime, forensic files.
That's the stuff
That's
I
not
love.
funny.
I love that stuff. It's fascinating.
Great, isn't it?
Oh, it
I
really
always
is,
love
yeah.
how women always kill their husbands with antifreeze. That's what I've noticed.
Well, they like antifreeze because it's sweet and tasty, and they can hide it real easy. Take a sip of this, Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks. The green antifreeze looks like it would taste good. It kind of looks like Gatorade.
It does look like Gatorade. Now, Dave, don't get any idea.
Oh, I'm not, dude. I'm not getting any ideas. Have you been watching the Johnny Depp trial, Larry?
I've heard a little bit about it. I'm trying to decide from what I've heard which one is crazier.
Right. It's pretty hard to distinguish between those two.
But what about Johnny's suits? Just his beautiful sunglasses.
Who?
Johnny Depp. His suits, those sunglasses. He looks smooth, Dave.
It's very important, Billy.
Have you watched much of it, Larry?
Has he
does look
blown
smooth.
through all his money? Is the trial for her to get more money or something?
I think the trial is for him to get some of his money back.
Oh. He went through a lot of it, apparently.
What about your take on Mike Tyson, Larry?
Don't show me your ear. I like that.
Don't show me your hair. My take on Mike Tyson, they should start an amusement park, and the ride will be he bites your ear off and whispers sweet nothings into it. How do you like that ride, buddy? Take that.
I didn't hear the whole story. He was on a plane and somebody was throwing crap on him and he punched him. Was that it?
That's when you mash up all of the headlines. That's basically what it comes to, Larry. Yeah, I mean, this guy was just a clown act, giving him a hard time, and I think Tyson had enough of it, wanted to maybe make an example of him and give him a couple lumps to the forehead.
He was right.
Yeah, I think he was right too. Yeah. Well, Larry, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Dave, what else did you want to talk about? Did you want to ask Larry anything?
Oh, I can't think. You guys.
Larry, where are you? We're Larry. Now, your documentary that you're in, Three Still Standing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's about, it followed me and Will Durst and Johnny Steele, three comics that started in San Francisco in the 80s and stayed there. And it kind of follows us to where the boom came up, then the boom collapsed, and then how we're still struggling, getting along these days. So it's kind of, I can't watch myself, so I haven't seen it, but some of the people that have seen it told me it's not bad, so I don't know.
Yeah, I watched the documentary yesterday morning. It was quite good. It was excellent, actually. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the people that made it were really cool, so that's good.
Yeah, I'd recommend people checking it out. It's on YouTube for free. And where are you going to be performing? You doing stand-up around? A little plug for yourself?
Yeah, I'm at the Alameda Comedy Club tonight.
All
and, I'm in Santa Cruz in June, of course, and not being the worst businessman in comedy, I forget where it's at.
Oh, is it going to be maybe the Crow's Nest, maybe, or...?
It's not the Crow's Nest. It's a room with DNA books. And,
oh, okay, DNA. All right. Yeah, fantastic. Well, Larry, when you come to town, it'll be fantastic to talk to you again. We'd love having you on the program.
I'd love to, man. I love talking comedy. So.
Oh, so do we.
I used to do radio. I love radio.
Oh, well, that's fantastic, Larry. We'd love to have you on again. It's been a pleasure. And, I just want to thank you for joining us. Maybe next time we'll have you on a little bit longer. But I was fascinated to check out that documentary. I want to recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, Three Still Standing, and I apologize for being late, but it wasn't totally my fault.
Oh, I know, Larry. No big deal. And that's not a big deal. It happens. We have technical difficulties all the time. It happens. Yeah.
We'll blame Kenny for everything.
Thank you for the call, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, buddy. Okay.
Larry Brown. Larry Bubbles Brown. Why do they call him Bubbles?
Well, we could have got into it now. That's covered in the documentary, Three Still Standing.
Okay.
And Paula Poundstone, who also is a comic, she comes to town sometimes to Santa Cruz, and she tells the story of why he's got that name, Larry Bubbles Brown, in the documentary. And you know what? Paula Poundstone has been on the morning show around here. So it's a fun documentary, but check it out.
Three Still Standing.
Three Still Standing.
It's the best of Flight 1080 on AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz.